Good morning, everyone. Here's what's bothering me today. We need to talk about Portland. Um, so, as with many other parts of the United States, there were a lot of Black Lives Matter protests in Portland, but apparently recently they've also just escalated into this intriguing mix of pro and anti government, and it's just being lost in the conversation. So now we're stuck with a situation where people are still protesting in Portland, and yet there has been increased violence, which has been blamed on Antifa and violent anarchists who have been graffitiing stuff. So this already seems a little suspicious. Case in point, in the Minneapolis riots, they found that it wasn't really the protesters who started those, it was outside actors to try and legitimize police brutality against them. I'm assuming similar thing is probably happening in Portland. But the real reason I want to talk about Portland today is that the mayor and most people didn't want these federal agents to come into Portland. But the feds came in and they said, no, well, we're not leaving. Which should already be raising some red flags and ringing some alarm bells in your head. And then there's the fact that some MRAPs have been seen being carried into Portland, and protesters are basically being disappeared into the night in unmarked cars by agents who don't show their number, their name, or anything like that. The Department of Homeland Security just released their rationale for why they deployed military force and started disappearing people and attempting to murder people in Portland. And it's basically just a list of graffiti incidents. Violent anarchists graffitied Hatfield Courthouse. Overall, the cost of damages on federal property done by the violent mob this first night was estimated at $5,000. They deployed federal troops over $5,000. Violent anarchists graffitied the BPA building. This is on May 30th. Violent anarchists graffitied the Hatfield Courthouse. Violent anarchists graffitied the Edith Green Wendell Wyatt building. Violent anarchists graffitied the Terry Shrunk Plaza. Violent anarchists graffitied the 911 Federal building. Violent anarchists graffitied the Pioneer Courthouse. Violent anarchists graffitied the Gus J. Solomon Courthouse. June 1st, violent anarchists graffitied the Hatfield Courthouse. Violent anarchists graffitied Terry Shrunk Plaza. Violent anarchists graffitied the Pioneer Courthouse. Violent anarchists graffitied the Gus J. Solomon Courthouse. Is it really violence when they're just causing some basic vandalism that, you clean up and your insurance should cover that? You really need to deploy federal troops? This seems like using a sledgehammer to kill a fly. It's a grossly irresponsible and overmeasured response. They're not wanted by locals, and yet they're there and they're refusing to leave, and no one's talking about this. The feds have basically told, for all those who are talking about rights and freedoms, the local people said, hey, we don't want you here. And the Fed said no. So I'm eagerly awaiting to see all the 3%ers and the Boogaloo Boys and the people who claim to defend liberty and freedom. I can't wait to see the protests that all y'all have planned to go to Portland and tell the feds to get out. Right? That's what you guys believe in, right? So, yeah, Mayor Wheeler told them to leave. Feds said no. Now they've fenced off public parks. They're abducting protesters off the street and throwing them into unmarked vans and cars. They're bringing in armored vehicles to patrol the streets at night. It's ridiculous, and it's dangerous, and it's a classic fascist textbook move. And no one's talking about this. And that's what's bothering me today.